Peace and much love. Zin Uru here. Welcome to the latest installment of Message from the Minister. This week's message is spiritual self-defense. Spiritual self-defense. We're going to cover a lot of ground on this message from the minister. So buckle your seatbelts and get ready. Just wanted to start off by thanking everyone for being here across all time, across all space, no matter where you're at on earth, no matter what time you are in on earth. You are here, we are here together now in this time and space. I want to welcome y'all here. I want to thank y'all for being here. And I also want to encourage y'all to just visualize yourself in this room here with me as we're giving this message from the minister. See, I start seeing and feeling more of y'all show up right after I say that. Remember that in spirit, there is no such thing as time and space. So no matter where you're at or when you're at, no matter where you're at on earth or no matter what time it is, hundreds of years from now, 10 days from now, 1 week from now, we are all here together in spirit. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. I think tonight, since we're going to be talking about spiritual self-defense, I want to talk a little about that preparation for that self-defense. We're going to be doing a reading tonight from the Bhagavad Gita. We're going to be reading from the Gospel of Hip Hop, track 2 from Endarkenment. I'm also going to be going over the two words, just the definitions of the word spiritual and the definition for the word defense, and also just go over a list of the 18 principles or the 18 performances of the divine performance. Just going to go over that list. So if you don't have a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop, I just want to encourage you to go out. I suggest you go get a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop, and that way you can study deeper. Each week, we talk about this divine performance because for us as hip hoppers, the divine performance, as we'll see, is the actual defense system. It's our style of defense. It's our form to be formless with, because it all comes together. These 18 performances all work together as one performance. So we don't hear this too often. We might actually hear the term like spiritual warfare a lot of times. We hear about spiritual warfare, this war that's raging on in the spirit realm. And, I don't know how often people actually talk about spiritual self-defense. I know as growing up in the church and in Christianity and myself, I know the traditional form of spiritual self-defense is prayer. It's prayer. You go into the prayer mode. You pray to the angels. You pray to Jesus. You pray to the Holy Spirit. You pray to God the Father. To help in any kind of situation where you feel like you may be under spiritual attack. And it works. I ain't gonna diss it. I ain't saying nothing about nothing in that category. Big up. It helped me a lot through my life. But as I've developed and I've studied other forms of religious thought, as I studied other people's belief systems, and then coming under the one roof of hip hop in that way, what I'd like to present tonight is a form of spiritual self-defense that's going to help the hip-hop and anyone really who's hearing this message, even if you don't claim hip-hop. This is that self-defense to help in the modern world in 2021, in 2041, in 2061, and so on and so forth. And these techniques are to be added unto. There's so much this week. I was like, I could give an 8-hour lecture easy on this. Easy, because of all the different readings that would be involved, all the different techniques, breaking it down, going over each of the divine performances. So once again, let's just call this an introduction to spiritual self-defense. I'll probably talk for over an hour tonight, but it's just going to be an introduction, really, to spiritual self-defense. But let these ideas come to you. I'm a big, firm believer, or I'm a big, firm student, I would say, of Bruce Lee's philosophy in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, Tao meaning the way, and Jeet Kune Do, the intercepting fist. The Tao of Jeet Kune Do means the way of the intercepting fist. And what the idea is that when the opponent's coming to attack, my fist intercepts them wherever they're at, or my foot, or my shoulder, or my elbow, or my wrist. So whatever it is, the idea is that our defense intercepts whatever they're throwing at us, whatever their offense is. my defense can also be my offense. Defense isn't just blocking something out. Defense is actually the punch, the strike, the kick, the shoulder, the choke. There's all kinds of forms of physical self-defense in that way. The knee to the groin, the poking of the eyes. All of that goes into physical self-defense. But the idea that Bruce Lee set forward, amongst many of the ideas that are presented in the Tao Jeet Kune Do, is that the title of the book that he chose is actually The Way of the Intercepting Fist. And that intercepting fist is when the opponent's coming in, my fist is intercepting their attack and stopping their attack. Same way with what we're going on here when we're talking tonight about spiritual self-defense. We want our spiritual energy body. We want our thoughts, our minds, our hearts. So when something comes at us, we're already stopping it. We're already stopping it in its tracks. So it doesn't have time to come and hurt us or harm us or scar us or hurt our energetic body in any way, shape, or form. But it's also different because this has a lot more to do with the body is included in spiritual self-defense because everything is a wholeness, everything is a oneness. This body is a spiritual being as well. And I think that we forget that oftentimes because we're going with the colonizer's definition of what is spirituality and what is real and what isn't real. But I'm here to tell you, though, there is a form of spiritual self-defense that as you grow spiritually, as we grow spiritually, I heard Bootsy Collins say, the higher the level, the higher the devil, baby. Or the higher the level, the greater the devil. And I always thought that was a dope line, but as I've gotten, grown in my spirituality and realizing, that there's levels to this, there's levels to spirituality, that each level, it's almost like a video game where you're fighting a tougher opponent on that video game. Remember, our waking reality is a reflection of spiritual reality, and spiritual reality is reflected into the mind and then reflected out into what we call material reality, this Maya, the tree of illusion, this temporary construct that we call earth life, that is always changing and always metamorphosizing. All these molecules in this room will eventually break down, go back into the earth, go back into something else, be created, recreated, reconstructed into something else. And that way, that's the eternity of Earth. These molecules, these protons, these electrons, these neutrons, these elements, they're all going to be breaking down and be turning into something else eventually. So there is an eternity here, an eternal flow here. And for us as spiritual beings having this experience, I started with the quote from John Trudell at the beginning of this video. We haven't talked about John Trudell here, but I wanted to read his quote real quick. And this is kind of just to get us started on tonight's lesson. That's why I started with his quote up there. His quote says, protect your spirit because you are in the place where spirits get eaten. That's John Trudell, a famous Native American activist who passed away just a couple years ago. And big up to John Trudell as an ancestor. One of the deepest thinkers. Take time to study John Trudell. Listen to his works, listen to his music, listen to his talks, read his quotes, get familiar with the ideas and the philosophies of John Trudell, one of the greatest thinkers of our time. And this quote right here again, protect your spirit because you are in the place where spirits get eaten. We are in this place. We have to protect our spirit because we're in a place where spirits get eaten. This transitionary nature, everything that's going on and always moving forward, we're in a place where spirits can get eaten. Spirits can get scarred. Spirits can die. And take that in for a moment. Like energy's eternal, but energy, and it can be turned into something else. None of this is eternal in that way. None of this is eternal in that way. It's going to all change into something else. So we're in that place where even our spirit can get changed into something else if we're not wise and if we don't pay attention. There's an ancient saying. The teacher one time told me we were contemplating and being philosophical late one night. We were outside underneath the stars, himself, myself, and Mondo. And big up to my brother Mondo 1. And the teacher looked up at the sky and he said, "Gentlemen, you look at the stars, right?" And we said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's all the souls that made it." And we were like, "Word, that's empowering." He says, hold up. He says, but look at all the darkness in the sky at night. And we were like, word? He goes, that's all the souls that didn't make it. So let's take a moment and feel that, you know. John Trudell, protect your spirit because you're in the place where spirits get eaten. Well, how do you protect your spirit? How do we protect our spirit? We can't just fight everything that's coming our way. A lot of times our battle, you know, the Bible, once again in Ephesians, I think it's 6:12, but it's Ephesians. I'll put the verse up here. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and wickedness in high places. We are, and even in the Bible it's saying, St. Paul is saying, that we're not just fighting a war here on earth, that's a physical war. We're fighting a spiritual battle. And what are those spiritual battles? Well, those are lusts, those are temptations, those are, we'll read about in the Gospel of Hip Hop. I actually want to start with that. We'll start with that and then go to the Bhagavad Gita after we get into our definitions. But we're talking about that in the spirit world, we're dealing with all kinds of doubts and fears and disbelief. And there are actually entities out there who want to eat our energetic body, want to deconstruct our energetic body. So our duty as beings, as spirit beings, is to empower and structure and to construct, make a solid construct out of our energetic body. Now, all of a sudden, how did we just jump from spiritual to energetic? I think that we're talking about the same terms here. When we talk about energy, we're talking about spirit. We're talking about something that is invisible and unseen. That's spirit, as we're going to see when we just look into the word spiritual. Just a brief definition. Actually, let's just get into that right now. All right, let's take a look at this word spiritual here. This is from the American Heritage Dictionary, and this is the third edition of the American Heritage Dictionary. Spiritual, of relating to, consisting of, or having the nature of spirit. Not tangible, and the key here, or material. That's why we're saying energy as well. Think of energy as spirit, of material. See, cinnamon is at immaterial. Energy is immaterial. Energy is not a material. Definition number 2 of spiritual, of concerned with or affecting the soul. Of concerned with or affecting the soul. So things that are spiritual are concerned with or they're affecting the soul. Definition number 3 of spiritual, of form or relating to God, deific. So of form or relating to God, deific. So that's the deity, that's God, that's the spiritual when it's relating to God. The spiritual is our relationship to God. The spiritual is how we are relating to God. Definition number 4 of spiritual, of or belonging to a church or religion, sacred. Definition number 5 of spiritual, relating to or having the nature of spirits or a spirit, something supernatural. Now, when we talk about giving a divine performance later on, that's supernatural. It's natural to get angry. People don't want to talk about violence as natural. Because if we look in nature, nature is very violent, but nature's violence actually has a specific reason and purpose when it's violent. But there's a lot of violence, so-called violence, going around in the natural world. So to be supernatural is to stop the violence. Where do we stop the violence? Well, we begin with ourselves. We begin within ourselves. I'm not saying, and remember, self-defense is not violence. Self-defense is not the violence. Is not violence. So the same thing with spiritual self-defense. This is not spiritual violence that we're perpetrating. This is spiritual self-defense. But there are those out there on earth who are intentionally using spiritual violence against us and our people. It's not just physical violence. It's not just the cop shooting and this, that, and the other. That's just an effect. The actual cause itself is the spiritual violence, that so-called spiritual warfare that's happening. And there is a sect of people, there is groups of people that are doing that very intentionally. They're fooling the masses with their mass media and their mass manipulation and their mind control and through their fear tactics. But we as hip-hoppers, we don't have a choice in this time, in this day, in this age. We have to see beyond their fear tactics. We have to see beyond their spiritual attacks, their spiritual violence, and not only defend ourselves, but defend our children, defend our community, defend one another, so we can defend the future. So when we're talking about spiritual self-defense, we're talking about God's form of self-defense. This is God's self-defense. This is the power of God defending us as, and saying us as one another, defending our energetic body, even defending our physical body spiritually. And that was spiritual definition number 5, relating to or having the nature of spirits or a spirit supernatural. This one too, spiritual as a noun. This is spiritual as a noun. The other one was spiritual as an adjective. Here is spiritual as a noun. Music, a religious folk song of American black origin. Woo! Spiritual. Music. Music. What definition number 1 of spiritual is music? Why do this is something that we've thought about for a long time. I know I've thought about this for a long time. Music is invisible. It's not material. Material items make this sound, but the sound is invisible. Now, I know they got probably certain devices that can look at certain sound waves, but they're not even looking at the whole sound wave. The whole sound wave moves out like water. A sound wave is like water. So there's no two-dimensional recreation of a sound wave that's actually showing what's actually happening in this reality, in this world, this outer world. When the sound of my voice is going into this microphone on this camera, or into this microphone, this lapel mic I have on, and this lapel mic is now taking the sound, transferring it through the camera, saving it on an audio card. I'll be putting this into a video. This video will be uploaded onto a service, onto an internet service. Then you will have a computer or a phone or some kind of device, iPad or something. You'll be looking at this and you'll be hearing the sound traveling across time and space. That's spiritual. Yeah, you're seeing me talking, but really the only thing that's really relevant here is what's actually being said. Now, there's other things being said. My hands are speaking. The way I hold my body is speaking. The certain movements that I'm doing, that's speaking, and that's language too. But the most relevant part of this language is my voice and the word that is speaking through this microphone into a device, out of a device, through those speakers, and it's actually, you're hearing the voice. It's invisible. The voice is invisible. You could not watch this video and really have much of an idea of what I'm saying unless you could read lips or you read some of the text that's put up. You're only going to have a little bit of an idea of what's being said because you have to know how it's being said. So sound is very important here. Music is very important here because music, now when we think of music and sound, that when you turn on a television, an advertisement doesn't work without the exciting music. A movie doesn't work. Sometimes they'll use silence in a movie to pull out a certain mood, but that's after there's been music in the movie to set another tone. So silence becomes another tone. But there's still sound coming out of the movie. You know, all of a sudden it's silent in the movie and the two ninjas are about to fight and the snow is falling down. And then all of a sudden there's no sound, but you hear the sound of the drip, drip, drip. I'm thinking of the movie Kill Bill Volume 1, where they're in that Japanese garden at the end in the snow. But, you know, they use that sound for very powerful, but then the sound is also the swords clashing, the snow hitting the ground. So sound is so important for us to think about as something spiritual, especially music, because sound and music is invisible. Spiritual is invisible. It's not of the material. When we look at this, having the nature of spirit, not tangible or material. Sound is not material. And check this out too. Look how this relates to hip-hop music specifically, because tonight we're talking about spiritual self-defense. We can use the elements of hip-hop, the core four, to ward off any demon attack, any demonic attack. We're going to get into that. But look at right here. Music, spiritual as a noun. Definition number 1, music. 1A, a religious folk song of American black origin. That's hip hop. Hip hop is folk music. People don't really realize that or see it as that, but by definition, hip hop is organic from a group of people. It is folk music. And hip hop carries with it rhythm and blues. It carries with it the old songs that they were singing in the churches, and the old songs that that black folk have been singing since ancient days in Africa. I'm bringing it over to the United States, no matter how they got here. Free man or so-called slave. That music is an integral part of not only, and specifically speaking about American music and what it says here, American black origin. Getting that down, that's soul music, a religious folk song of American black origin. Just getting down into all those styles from jazz, from the blues, from gospel, all of these sounds coming under the one roof of hip hop music, soul music. Now check this out too, and this is for those of us who have lighter tones of skin. This definition includes us, a work composed in imitation of such a song. A work composed of imitation of such a song. Well, every race hears American black music and hears it and goes, yo, I want to do something like that. Rock and roll. Rock and roll came from the blues. Rock and roll came from Chuck Berry. They say Chuck Berry is the father of rock and roll. Chuck Berry was the biggest influence on the Beatles' music, on the Beach Boys' music. Like Chuck Berry influenced rock and roll. Chuck Berry and Little Richard influenced rock and roll in the beginning. Influenced people like Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis. So. As an MC myself, as somebody who's been inspired by American black music, I could say, I don't really agree with imitation of such a song. That just seems a little racist to me, because it's inspiration of such a song. Like, I'm inspired by that music too, and that music is me. I feel that music. So when I rap, I'm carrying along in that same tradition, and hip hop is beyond color. So that's where, this definition doesn't work exactly in hip hop, but our spiritual sight, our hip hop sight, can see how this music exactly relates to hip hop, how spiritual as a noun is music, a religious folk song of American black origin, a work composed in imitation of such a song. That's Elvis Presley, and Elvis Presley had soul. His music was soulful. That's why people move to it and still listen to it to this day. I like Chuck Berry better, but that's my personal preference. Definition number 2. Often spirituals, religious, spiritual, or ecclesiastical matters. Now we're getting a little different. This is as often spirituals, religious, spiritual, or ecclesiastical matters. And it's the Middle English from the Old French spiritual. And check this out, from Latin spiritualis, of breathing, okay? Of breathing, spiritual, from spiritus, breath. Spirit means breath. Spiritual means of the breath. Wow. So let's start there with spiritual self-defense. Let's get into our breath. Let's take 3 deep breaths, and you can all take them with me. This is just a reminder. We've done this before on Message from the Minista. We're going to breathe in deep through the nose, hold it for a second, release from the mouth. And when we breathe, if you take your thumb and put it over your belly button, your left thumb over your belly button, just cup your hand underneath there, underneath your navel. Let's see, if I stay on my tippy toes, you can probably see this. Take your right hand, stick it over the left hand, the thumb over the other thumb, which is over the belly button, and just cup your stomach here. And when you breathe in, fill up your stomach through the nose. We're going to breathe in through the nose, fill up our stomach. 1. Hold it for a second. Then release out the mouth. That's 1. Now feel your stomach go in when you push in. Feel your stomach push in. And now when you fill it with the nose again, breathe in number 2. Fill that belly all the way up with air. Hold it for a second. And release. And release it all. Hold it for a second. Breathe in number 3 through the nose. Filling up the belly, hold it for a second. Give it a good stretch. Now see right there, we were just communing with spirit. Spirit is of the breath. It's the breath. So being spiritual is being of the breath. Self-defense of the breath. The breath. See how amazing it is when we're in a clear mind state and our body gets full of that oxygen from taking a breath? See how much more clear and focused we are on our outer surroundings. Our peripheral vision widens. We can actually see closer details. We can see color more vibrantly. We can hear sounds more clearly as well. We can actually feel our heartbeat slow down. We can feel the blood moving through our veins. Our stomach even feels more relaxed just by taking 3 deep cleansing breaths. Now, in self-defense, actually, let's just get to defense, too, before we get into spiritual self-defense. Let's just throw that up there and let's go through this, because there's quite a few definitions here. We don't need to get into depth in all of them, but I'm going to put that up there right now. Remember, tonight's topic is spiritual self-defense. Defense. Definition. The act of defending against attack, danger, or injury. The act of defending against attack, danger, or injury. That's what we're dealing with defense. A means or method of defending or protecting. Defense is protection as well. Defense, this one is for defense, an argument in support of justification of something. See Cinnamon's apology. Number 4, law. Okay, so this is defense in law. A, the action of the defendant in opposition to complaints against him or her. The defendant and his or her legal action. We don't really need those as much. This one, number 5, though, this is very important. Defense, definition number 5. This is what we're talking about tonight. The science or art of defending oneself. Self-defense. It's also defense against oneself. Self-defense is defense against oneself. You'd be surprised how many times that our spiritual attacks are coming from our own mind and our own thoughts that we're allowing in. And not from some outside source. They're coming from us. So we need self-defense. We need to have some kind of a defense against ourselves from our, self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Or self-construction. Those 2 songs, we'll put a link down there. Self-destruction was a Stop the Violence movement way back in 1989. And then in 2009, the 20-year anniversary, we did self-construction. Self-destruction to self-construction. But the science or art, and look at this, the art, so art is also a form of defense, the science or art of defending oneself, self-defense. And sports, those are, the defense of a football team. Number 7, the military, governmental, and industrial complex, especially as it authorizes and manages weaponry production. Okay, well, so much to say here. Like I said, we can get into all of these. And come all the way down here, defensa, from in Latin, defensa, the feminine past participle of defendre, to ward off. To ward off evil spirits, to ward off these demonic attacks, to ward off those which try to hurt us. But our spiritual existence actually balances the energetic balance on earth. And that's what spiritual defense is all about. It's defending our spirit from these spiritual attacks, from these invisible attacks, from these energetic attacks. And sometimes those attacks, they're not always just deliberate. All attacks on us are not deliberate. They're not just coming from an outside source. It might just be because we don't know how to become unharmonized with our environment. We may live with noises going on outside of us every day. We hear the cars rushing by, or we hear the traffic outside, or we hear the neighborhood noises, or we live in a loud part of a city. And we have to learn to tune out those certain noises and those certain sounds. And instead of those sounds being brash, almost bring those sounds like they're the meditation music, like the background sounds of the city become a meditation music. It's a living meditation. This is a form of spiritual defense, is a living meditation. So don't get it twisted, like your energy body, how you feel at any time or space, like when we took our 3 deep breaths, That's a way for us to tune into ourselves and become more relaxed, become more aware of what's going on in our outside environment. Listening to music, as we just saw that music is spiritual. The music, the sounds that we listen to affect our spiritual body. They affect our energy body. Therefore, they actually affect our physical body. It's very important, and that there's a certain form of music that is spiritual. For me, I like Bob Marley. Bob Marley is spiritual music. Prince is spiritual music. KRS-One is spiritual music. The Zin Uru is spiritual music. It's music that's speaking to a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. But Bob Marley, his music, it has this message, it's got this feel, it's got this vibration, it's got this frequency that when you listen to Bob Marley, it actually changes the spiritual mood of the environment of the listener. Music has a profound ability to heal people. How many times has, last night a DJ saved my life? Does the DJ play the right song and it saves somebody's life? And not figuratively, but literally. Now, cool, I'll give you an example of that. Cool DJ Herc was saying at the roundtable discussion that when he would see like a fight was about to break out at the party, he'd throw on a slow jam. He'd put on a slow jam record, and the fight he could watch people's energy change. He could watch the fight go out of them by putting on a slow jam. When he'd see people getting too aggressive after playing hardcore break beats. He knew he had a technique that he would calm the music down to calm the audience down, then build them back up. So, how does a DJ save somebody's life? Well, what if that DJ was only playing something aggressive or something dangerous and that fight broke out and somebody got killed? So in that instance, a DJ can literally save somebody's life. Same with an MC, same with a singer, same with a graffiti writer, same with a b-boy or a b-girl, same with anybody doing anything inspirational that inspires somebody. That could save their life in that sense, save their life from living a life of boredom and a life of complacency, and then they get inspired to be something more than they are. And this is what it means. Many years ago, the teacher, he said to me, he said, Zin, do you realize that you can take any of the core 4 elements of hip-hop and use them and defeat any demonic force that's coming at you? I was like, word, you can. I see it, but how do we define that? Now get that. We can use breaking, MCing, graffiti art, or DJing to defend ourselves against any demonic force. I took that to heart. When you listen to my albums, especially Liberator, I'm aware of the demonic forces coming against us. Liberator is my intercepting fist against that. That's why it came out. I saw him coming and intercepted it. So Liberator is the way of the intercepting fist for me as an artist, as an MC. But any of these arts, we say often the opposite of depression is expression. The opposite of depression is expression. So through these core 4 elements, breaking, MCing, graffiti art, and DJing, through these artistic elements, we can express ourselves. Depression is a demonic attack. It's a form of demonic attack. Not that the person who is experiencing depression is a demon in any way, shape, or form. But the depression itself is an energetic attack that starts eating away at the soul of the human. So when one can express oneself through dance, through art, through words, through painting, through music, when one can express oneself through it, I don't know anybody who truly is expressing themselves artistically who feels depressed after they've expressed themselves artistically. You feel just like, wow, like when I say a dope rhyme, even when I do one of these videos, it's like there's a feeling inside that I've expressed myself and my body's flooded with those endorphins, positive feelings, positive vibrations, and I wake up feeling more vibrant than I did before. This is spiritual self-defense. The core 4 elements of hip-hop culture are literally spiritual self-defense as well as physical self-defense. Remember that hip-hop in the early days was a way out of gang violence. And people could battle one another on the mic without having to punch each other up. People could battle each other on the mic without shooting one another. And that's carried over. Now, sometimes it spills over, but that's not the code of hip-hop. We got to battle it out with our elements, and really on a deeper level, on a larger level, not even battling it out with one another, but battling it out against the oppressive forces that are against us all collectively. The so-called New World Order. Remember, hip-hop is the true world order. Hip-hop is self-defense. It's spiritual self-defense. Hip-hop is spiritual self-defense. Know where you're at, wake up to where you're at. Wake up to what you're really dealing with. I made a song last year called Digital Prison about the digital smart grid as a form of where everybody's under surveillance. They have these weapons that can go out of computers and phones and devices. Like you can look into these patents online that they actually have weaponized this 5G grid. And it's, once again, that we're talking about invisible sound waves, invisible sound force vibration, invisible frequencies that are coming into our bodies. This is where things like orgonite, this is where orgonite comes in, is because orgonite can protect the body, the physical body, with its own invisible spiritual shield of sound vibration, of energetic vibration. It can protect the physical body from, it's like a shield. Orgonite is like a shield because these extremely low frequencies, these L frequencies that are coming from the 5G towers and the 4G and the 3G and the 2G and the 1G and the phone and the computer and the router and all that, those invisible sound waves that are coming in, orgonite has it's orgone energy. It's called orgone energy. Orgonite's just a way to generate orgone energy. And it's a real science to it. So don't just go out and buy any of it. Get into the science of it. Know what you're getting into. And we'll get more into that as the new business opens up and things. I'll be sharing more of that with us. But just keep in mind those frequencies come in, and then that orgone energy can act as a shield and push those frequencies can't get through. It acts as a shield. It's spiritual self-defense in that way. Because those little frequencies, they come in, and this is just quick, I'm breezing over some really in-depth science that we'll get into in the future, hits the water body. That energy hits the water body, that sound frequency hits the water body, and the water of our body is a crystallographic matrix. And so it hits that water, and it can either destructure the water, or we can have a device like this arc pillar right here. This is a patented pillar, it's a crystal, but it's been arced with gems and gold. And this thing puts off to an orgone energy field. Same with, you'll see me wearing a necklace, a crystal necklace called an arc star. Those put off an energy field that not only structure the body's water because of the way that they're in tune through piezoelectricity, that they also offer a defense mechanism, a barrier. That orgone energy offers a barrier against those frequencies that are coming at us everywhere we go, including our car, including this camera. So this, once again, is spiritual self-defense. You need to know this knowledge in 2021 because it's coming at us literally from all sides. So we as hip-hoppers, we need to really, those of us who are watching this video, like I said earlier, it's not just about everybody getting this knowledge. It's about the right ones getting this knowledge. Because we as spiritual beings, we are defenders of our culture in that way. We're defenders spiritually as well. We're not just here ready to battle somebody on the mic who wants to come at our culture. We can defend ourselves through education, through knowledge, through wisdom, through study, through discipline. So let's get into our readings tonight. Let's start with the Gospel of Hip Hop. And once again, this is a deep subject. This is a deep subject to be covering. I usually don't cover this publicly like this. This would be more in private when we do private gospel calls, private gospel readings. This is more for that. But I just feel the need with the state of the world in 2021 and those who are coming to me each and every day wanting this resource, I'm directing them to the Gospel of Hip Hop, especially Endarkenment, the ninth overstanding Endarkenment. And I want to get into all of that, but let's just focus right now on track 2. The homework, if you have a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop, to really understand what is being said here tonight, study the entire Endarkenment. All track 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and track 4. So tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Endarkenment. That's the homework for this week and really for this whole month of June. But let's go ahead and turn to page 365, track 2. I'm going to commentary on this, but really just want to get into the reading of this. And so just reader, just open your eyes to what this is. When we're talking about energy here. Endarkenment is a way of seeing energy, electromagnetic energy, thought energy, the energy of all of creation, the vibrational frequencies, the sounds of God, literally. That is track 1. Study track 1 for a deeper understanding of how that electromagnetic energy works and how it relates. Right now, though, we want to talk about spiritual self-defense. So go ahead. We're going to go skip over track 1 and get to track 2 on page 365. For the one God can be perceived as our Father and the earth as our mother. But these are figurative and symbolic terms. The realm of spirit is beyond rational intellectual thought. The challenge is that God is a oneness, a boundless conscious event. Yet, rational intellectual thought must individualize, label, question, and define each temporary effect in an effort to make sense of the physical world. The intellect wants order out of chaos, but the true reality of the one God is chaos to the intellect. And remember, chaos is just a higher form of order. When we're talking about God and spirituality, what looks like chaos to the human intellect is actually just a higher form of order to the spirit. Therefore, stories, parables, angels, devils, and other symbolism are used to explain spiritual concepts simply because the realm of spirit cannot be fully comprehended through intellect alone. Such a technique of symbolism and parable is also used throughout the Gospel of Hip Hop to explain some very real concepts in spiritual living. Let us continue. Consider this: heaven is not just where you are going, heaven is where you came from. Nirvana is not just a state of awareness to attain, it is the very state of awareness you have forgotten. The Gospel of Hip Hop should not be the only authentic hip hop lifestyle. It is simply the way that God has instructed us to come at this time. Now check this out. This is the key right here. The world of nature, with its systems of prey and predators, is a projection of spiritual reality. Just as the deer is hunted by the lion, human beings are hunted by devils. Not half man, half animal characters, but in fact jealousies, greeds, hatreds, fears, temptations, etc. in the realm of spirit. These predators are real. We're talking about spiritual self-defense, so realize what the spiritual predators are. They're not half man, half animal characters, but in fact they are the jealousies, greeds, hatreds, fears, temptation, etc. in the realm of spirit. These predators are real. They eat and eventually deplete one's life force. We will become aware of our true reality and be better equipped to protect ourselves when we understand that we are part of a spiritual food chain system, just as the deer is part of a natural food chain system. Check that out. We are part of a spiritual food chain system, just as the deer is part of a natural food chain system. All day and night we are giving and receiving the conscious breath of life. Spirit, the conscious breath of life. We just saw that the word spirit is the breath of life. All day and night we are giving and receiving the conscious breath of life. But spiritual beasts, devils, seek to deplete our life force, our consciousness, for their own nourishment. Randomly, these packs of predators seek our life force to sustain themselves. Jealousies, greeds, hatreds, lusts, fears, etc. are like real beasts that have no life unto themselves, so they seek the life force emanating from us to survive. You'll check that out. See these things like jealousies, hatred, ignorance, greed, all of these things, they're seeking to eat our life force, our life energy. They're real energies. Jealousy is a real energy looking to find someone and deplete that. Deplete that person's being, deplete that person's energetic body. Follow this. In the spirit realm, thought is as real as a cloud or a mist or a fog. Check that out. In the spirit realm, thought is as real as a cloud, a mist, or a fog. In the physical realm, thought is temporary, material things and circumstances. Either way, thought is real. And the thought energy of others, now this is the defense right here. And they know this, the people, the new so-called New World Order, they're using this daily, but we got to wake up to this fact right here. And the thought energy of others, if left unrestrained, whether good or evil, will roam around looking to fulfill its purpose in the lives of random people. Like stray animals looking for food, the random thinking of others will wander around until it is either fulfilled or transformed, further created. Both good and evil, undirected thoughts wander aimlessly, like the way certain airborne bacteria wander throughout the air until a series of life circumstances brings them into the nostril, eye, and/or ear of some random individual. And it is not that such airborne bacteria, wandering thought in and of itself is harmful to us. It is more the fact that our immune system, our principles and values, may not be as strong and we may need them to be. Such weaknesses in our own natural defense system, our mind, give airborne bacteria, wandering thought, the advantage over us, and we become sick, imbalanced. The thoughts of others affect us too. So these wandering thoughts, these myths are walking around, and if our spiritual immune system, our spiritual self-defense, is not up to par, is not strong enough, then we get attacked by these random jealousies, hatreds, greeds, lusts, fears. We get attacked by that, and it begins to weaken the body if our spiritual self-defense system isn't rocking. Just like our physical self-defense system isn't rocking. Like our immune system is our self-defense. Get that too. Our immune system, spiritual, is self-defense. Our physical immune system is self-defense as well. Okay. Such wandering and undirected thoughts roam around us until we run into it, and then it seems like some unexpected circumstance always seems to come our way. People usually call such circumstances good luck or bad luck. However, it is the thinking of unaware spirit beings, human beings, that create such wandering thought energy and random life experiences. Some thought energy is created with the intention to help, so-called good luck, while other thought energy is created with the intention to harm, so-called bad luck. The intellect cannot see itself. Only the spirit can accurately look at the mind of reason and intellectual awareness, and only in spirit can the teacher see and manipulate thought energy of all kinds. Let's go back. Some thought energy is created with the intention to help, so-called good luck, while other thought energy is created with the intention to harm, so-called bad luck. So check this out. As spiritual people, like I was saying earlier, and this message isn't for everybody, it's for those of us with eyes to see and ears to hear and souls to feel, that if we're going out and we know when we're out publicly that our random thinking can actually help people, that can run into our thoughts, don't we have a responsibility then to be aware of what we're thinking when we're out in public and not leaving tempting thoughts behind, or angry thoughts behind, or fearful thoughts behind that other people are going to pick up on? No, our duty as spiritual beings is to have our right thinking in a way that we are leaving helpful thoughts for other people to run into. That's how we help our tribe. That's how we help our people. That's how we help random strangers. And as spiritual beings, let us be aware that while we're walking out and about, our spiritual immune system, our spiritual self-defense has to be in a place of discipline, of fortitude, that it can actually defend itself against any so-called random attack of bad luck or thought that may come our way. And actually up here we says further, until it is either fulfilled or transformed. So we're getting into transmutation, the alchemy, the spiritual alchemy. When these so-called negative thoughts come to us, let them leave as so-called positive thoughts. These so-called, let's be more accurate, as these so-called harmful thoughts come to us, let us transmute them into so-called helpful thoughts when they leave us. So if you're out wandering around and all of a sudden you have this like negative thought that you don't really know where it came from, recognize you probably just ran into somebody else's random thinking. Transmute it back into something helpful. It happens pretty quick too when you have a strong spiritual immune system. Paragraph 59. Knowing that the ultimate force behind all thought energy is light, the teacher accepts all random life experiences, both good and evil, as manifestations of properly directed light or misdirected light. Dealing with physical reality from its source, which is thought energy, and dealing with thought energy from its source, which is light energy, the teacher manipulates the physical world itself, causing miracles with the empowering awareness of the oneness, the wholeness, for there are no separate things or events. All right, so we're just going to stop there with the gospel of hip-hop because we're talking about spiritual self-defense. And this is the key, is to realize that what we're actually defending ourselves against is the energetic thought patterns, the crystallographic energy thought patterns that are leaving light behind like a mist that are coming from other people coming to us. We also talked about the television. You know, the television almost is like the way that they do the movies and the advertising. When you can see with this hip-hop spiritual site, you can see that they're actually creating negative emotions and negative thought patterns in people. So people are constantly running around, running into each other's negative thought patterns that are created by the talk box, by the television, or by the internet, or by the media, and actually just running around to these things. This is what mass mind control looks like. That's how it works. They put the thought out there and people begin replicating that thought process. People begin replicating the fear. And then the fear becomes almost real and it begins eating the energetic body because that's what that fear, that's what they need. That's what these so-called demons need to feed off of. Now, it gets into it a little bit deeper, saying, that we call these things demons and devils, but we don't call the person that. They're infected. The people get infected with demons and devils. And these high-ups that know this, that know they put negative energy or they put these harmful thought processes out, these fearful thought processes out, these lustful thoughts, buy this, buy that, the lust, and the lust of the flesh to always be fulfilled with the latest and greatest, the most expensive. And you're not worthy if your job isn't here, and you feel the guilt, and guilt is another one of those demons. See how it works? See how this system is designed to fail for people, to keep people subservient spiritually? Remember, the physical is a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual. If people are in physical subservitude, that means that they're in spiritual subservitude. Wake up, hip-hop, wake up to who you are and what you are capable of, and wake up to your spiritual self-defense and begin defending yourself against these so-called random attacks and against these attacks of the so-called New World Order that they're putting out and making people feel bad, and become a real warrior and go out there and leave helpful thoughts behind wherever you go. Helpful words wherever you go. Sometimes a helpful word is like, hey, yo, you got to quit acting like that, man. You might come up to the wrong person, honk that horn at the wrong person, and they might shoot you. You got to quit acting like that out in public. That's spiritual self-defense. That's a form of self-defense. It don't always mean just walking around, I'm only going to say nice things. Sometimes the nicest thing you can say to somebody is a warning about their dangerous behavior, their self-destructive behavior. Now, love's got to come hard in that way. Peace has got to come hard in that way. The truth has got to come hard in that way. But it also means saying, nice things to people you just meet randomly too. Be like, hey, yo, man, good looking out. I appreciate you being here and working here today. I wouldn't be able to get this food if you wasn't here, so thank you for taking your time and doing this. I really just want to say peace to your day, and, may good fortune come your way. You can say something like that. Somebody looks down or sad, you could just say, yo, man, it's all good. You're bigger than that. I can see something's bothering you. I don't want to get into it. It ain't none of my business. But I could just tell you, I can see that you're the type of person that you're better than that and you're bigger than that. Start leaving behind, helpful words. We got to start leaving behind helpful thinking wherever we go. So when people run into our thoughts, all of a sudden they're like, oh man, I ran into one of Zin Uru's thoughts. It's going to be random, but I ran into one of Zin Uru's thoughts, man. I hope wherever I go, when somebody runs into one of my thoughts, that they feel inner peace and they get a closer connection to God and to themselves, to their path, to their purpose. That's how powerful we are as individuals and as beings. So wake up, my nobility. Got a great responsibility to do, especially those of us walking the spiritual path. And if you listen to a message from the minister, that's you. Let's get into our next reading here, and then we'll close out. This is the Bhagavad Gita. I was just drawn to this, the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of Life. I just wanted to get into this. This is the Stephen Mitchell translation. A few weeks ago, did a breakdown of this, a lot more in depth, the story of the Bhagavad Gita. But I just want to share the words of Krishna with y'all. This is chapter 16. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, and the title of this chapter is Divine Traits and Demonic Traits. And this is going to get into the divine performance just as a little, it's just a little peek ahead. Divine traits, which is the divine performance, and demonic traits. And this is Krishna talking to Arjuna. When this came to me this week, when I was putting together the notes from Message from the Minista, I went to the back of the Bhagavad Gita knowing that there was a message back there. This was not the message I was expecting. But this was the message that was needed to be heard. Divine traits and demonic traits. The blessed Lord, which is Krishna, said, fearlessness, purity of heart, persistence in the yoga of knowledge, generosity, self-control, nonviolence, gentleness, candor, integrity, disengagement, joy in the study of the scriptures, compassion for all beings, modesty, patience, a tranquil mind, dignity, kindness, courage, a benevolent, loving heart. These are the qualities of men born with divine traits, Arjuna. Hypocrisy, insolence, anger, cruelty, ignorance, conceit. These, Arjuna, are the qualities of men with demonic traits. The divine traits lead to freedom, the demonic to suffering and bondage. But do not be concerned, Arjuna. The traits you have are divine. Do not be concerned, Arjuna. The traits you have are divine. The demonic and the divine are the two kinds of men in this world. The divine I have told you about. Now learn about the demonic. Demonic men. And this is so important. I want you to pay attention right here because people be confused about this. But this is Krishna talking here. Demonic men do not realize what should and what should not be done. There is no purity of heart, no virtue, no truth inside them. They say that life is an accident caused by sexual desire, that the universe has no moral order, no truth, no God. Clinging to this stupid belief, drawn into cruelty and malice, they become lost souls, at last enemies of the whole world. driven by insatiable lusts, drunk on the arrogance of power, hypercritical, deluded, their actions foul with self-seeking, tormented by a vast anxiety that continues until their death, convinced that the gratification of desire is life's sole aim, bound by 100 shackles of hope, enslaved by their greed, they squander their time dishonestly, piling up mountains of wealth. Today I got this desire, and tomorrow I will get that one. All these riches are mine, and soon I will have even more. Already I have killed these enemies, and soon I will kill the rest. I am the Lord, the enjoyer, successful, happy, and strong, noble, and rich, and famous. Who on earth is my equal? I will worship, give alms, and rejoice. Thus think these ignorant fools. Bewildered by endless thinking, entangled in the net of delusion, addicted to desire, they plunge into the foulest of hells. Self-centered, stubborn, filled with all the insolence of wealth, they go through the outward forms of worship, but their hearts are elsewhere. And I keep in mind, he's talking about wealth, he's talking about physical riches, he's talking about too much money, he's talking about these billionaires, these trillionaires. He ain't talking about the wealth of spirit, but he's talking about those men and women and these beings who just got to have more, like Agent Smith. Self-centered, stubborn, filled with all the insolence of wealth, they go through the outward forms of worship, but their hearts are elsewhere. Clinging to the eye sense, to power, to arrogance, lust, and rage. They hate me, deny my presence in their own and others' bodies. Now this is Krishna saying this. Krishna is like the Christ. Krishna is the Christ. It's another term for the Christ. Is Krishna is saying this. The consciousness that is in each of us, the oneness, the wholeness, that being, that spirit that you are, that knows that only you are and only are aware that you are. Changing to the eye sense, wait, right here, they deny my presence in their own and in others' bodies. That's what Jesus meant that's what the Bible means when they say they deny Christ. Krishna is saying the same thing. Denying my presence in their own and in others' bodies. They're denying the spirit reality in their own bodies and in others' bodies, and it's insatiable for them. Through all the cycles of birth and death, I hurl these depraved, cruel, and hate-filled men into demonic wombs. Trapped in demonic wombs, deluded in birth after birth, they never reach me, Arjuna, but sink to the lowest state. This is the soul-destroying, threefold entrance to hell. Desire, anger, and greed. Every man should avoid them. The man who refuses to enter these three gates into darkness does what is best for himself and attains the ultimate goal. But the man who rejects the scriptures, chasing his own desires, cannot attain the goal of true joy or true success. Therefore, guided by the scriptures, know what to do and not do. First, understand their injunctions, then act accordingly in the world. Listen to what Krishna says about these men who keep cycling this. He says right here, this is amazing. The demonic men do not realize what should and should not be done. There is no purity of heart, no virtue, no truth inside them. And then over here, bound by 100 shackles of, tormented by a vast anxiety that continues until their death, convinced that gratification of desire is life's sole aim, bound by 100 shackles of hope, enslaved by their greed, they squander their time dishonestly, piling up mountains of wealth. Through all the cycles of birth and death, I hurl these depraved, cruel, and hate-filled men into demonic wombs. This is Krishna, what he's saying. These people who have these colonizers who have no idea of soul and spirit, and who are intentionally sending forth energies to eat the soul and subject the spirit of humanity. Krishna is calling them out here. And Krishna is telling Arjuna in this that Arjuna is to wake up and defend himself, defend his nation, defend his country, defend his people. That's what God is calling us to do right here, right now, in this time and this space, hip-hop. Do you really think that these people who plan these military wars, who plan these biological wars, who plan this spiritual warfare, who enslave humanity through thought and sound and digital networks, do you really think they have your best interest in mind? No, they only have their own interest in mind. Do not deny the word of God. Do not deny the word of the scriptures. Do not deny the word that is written in your heart, my nobility. Self-defense, spiritual self-defense, that begins when you realize what you're actually up against. And it starts with yourself, because these ideas they're ideas that they're putting forth in the media are trying to convince us that we are worthless, that we are invaluable, that we need to feel guilty, that we need to feel anxiety, that we need to be afraid. And if our spiritual body, if our spiritual immune system isn't up to snuff, we see it all the time. We see people hurt, broken, lost, lonely, confused, and don't know what to do, depressed, living in anxiety and fear. And if that's you, I'm here to tell you something. God is a miracle worker. God can work a miracle in you in that way. But you got to take yourself seriously. You got to take your practice seriously. They say, God helps those who help themselves. Well, God helps those who cannot help themselves. But if you can help yourself, rise up, my nobility. That was divine. Like look at the name of this. Look at the name of this chapter again. Divine traits and demonic traits. We see what the demonic traits are. Krishna just told us what all those demonic traits are. The Gospel of Hip Hop was talking about those demonic traits too. Same thing. Krishna's talking about the same thing that KRS-One is talking about in the Gospel of Hip Hop there. So how do we do it? What do we use? Well, that's where the divine performance comes in. So let's get into that. Let's read what the 18 performances of the divine performance are. I'm just going to go over this list right here. Take a moment. I'll say it slowly. Go grab a pen and paper. Get a pen and paper handy and write these down, or pause and write these down. I'm going to put them up on the screen here. But then get the Gospel of Hip Hop and study these deeper. But when we talk about spiritual self-defense, these are the techniques. These are the ones to put to work immediately, that you've probably been putting to work in your life in some form or another. But this is the spiritual self-defense, because these are the spiritual traits of the divine performance. These are the spiritual traits of somebody who can defend themselves and has a healthy immune system. This divine performance will give your spirit a very healthy immune system. Perform God, perform listening, perform study, perform discipline, perform forgiveness, perform patience, perform charity, perform love, perform faith, perform overstanding, perform truth, perform skill, perform intelligence, perform communication, perform responsibility, perform action, perform prayer, perform hip hop. This is spiritual self-defense. A strong spiritual immune system will create a strong physical immune system. If your physical immune system is weak, your spiritual immune system is weak as well. There's no judgment here. We've all been there. We wouldn't know about this and had to write about this if we were not there. There's no guilt here. We're not judging nobody here. None of that here. This is about truth right here. This is about the reality and embracing the reality where any of us find ourselves in right now, here at this moment. So if you're in need of spiritual healing, study the scriptures. Get with your God. Watch the right videos. Change what you're watching. Change what you're eating. Change what you're drinking. Set yourself up an altar in your room. Turn your room into a shrine. Make your room a peaceful place. Make your car a peaceful place. Burn peaceful incense. Play music that makes you feel peaceful and centered and strong. Empowering as well. It doesn't have to be quiet meditation music as the only thing. You can listen to some boom bap and be empowered. Whatever makes your spirit feel stronger, whatever makes your spirit sing out. Find yourself in that space and get into the discipline. We just read perform. Discipline is in there in the divine performance, performing that discipline to do and get into those habits, those day-to-day habits that are going to help you have a spiritual self-defense system. It's in place. The world is coming at us, but it's only there to strengthen us. Just like viruses in the environment, they come at us, but they're just there to strengthen our immune system. And if you find yourself spiritually sick, it's just because your spiritual immune system is strengthening itself now. Just like after we get over being sick, when humans get over being sick, most of the time it's because the sickness has actually fortified the immune system, has boosted itself up to fight off the sickness. But there has to be certain medicines that are taken, certain herbs that are taken, certain diets, certain rest, certain music, certain decisions made in life to build up that immune system. Same thing with the spiritual immune system. Don't let the ways of the world try and take our people out. Don't let random thinking of other individuals make you feel less about yourself. Don't let the pre-programmed ideas of the media and the school system and the religious institutions in America and the world, don't let all these institutions and all these so-called experts and all this media and all this so-called new world garbage delude you into attacking yourself. Remember, it also says in Endarkenment that these demons can't really attack us. They have to convince us to attack ourselves. They don't really have no power in ourselves. Like lust doesn't have no power until somebody takes that lust in and makes themselves grab that lust and then harm themselves. Or grab that greed and harm themselves with that greed. But a strong spiritual immune system is going to give you the ability that when that greed or that temptation comes, you just fight it off and it's no part of you. This is how we become a wholly integrated people, have an omnipresent power. This is our spiritual immune system. Get into that divine performance. Get into yourself. Find that space within yourself. Make your room a place where you can go and meditate and that you can replenish your juices and replenish your energy and energize your body. Get into that right exercise that energizes you. Watch those right shows or listen to those right talks or that right music that energizes you and builds up your spiritual immune system. And so then when we go out in public, when we go out and about, when we're running around the world, when we run into the random thoughts of others, the random harmful thoughts of others, they can hit our spiritual immune system, our spiritual self-defense, and be transmuted and leave us as helpful thoughts and ideas and helpful vibrations and frequencies for other people to run into to help their immune system, to help them on their way. Become that, my nobility. This is a wholly integrated people, have an omnipresent power. This is the spiritual defense system. This is spiritual self-defense. I want to thank y'all for being here. And like I said, we just scratching the surface of spiritual self-defense. This could easily be an 8-hour lecture digging into about 4 or 5 other books. For real, for real. But I hope this introduction just gets those juices flowing, gets those ideas flowing, gets those thoughts flowing, gets that inspiration flowing in you. And you probably have your own techniques that you've used and you've developed. Start taking notes. Start teaching them to others. Start developing your spiritual defense system. You know, just like Bruce Lee, you know, flow like water, you know, be like water, my friend, flow with it. Bruce Lee is unattached to any one way of doing anything. You should be able to he teaches that you should be able to throw a strike from any angle, from anywhere you're at, being able to throw a strike in any direction. That's what Bruce Lee is teaching. Throw that intercepting fist in any direction. Doesn't matter where it comes. That same thing, that intercepting spiritual immune system that's just like, boom, negativity tries to come my way, boom, positive, it's gonna come in negative, it's gonna leave positive. I ain't letting none of that harmful energy leave me. I'm only letting helpful energy and growing energy and loving energy leave me.
That's it. That's my vibration. That's my frequency. That's our vibration. That's our frequency. And it's our natural state of being, my nobility. Rise up, my nobility. Peace and so much love to you, and peace and so much love to your spiritual self-defense. There it is. Hip!